let's jump right in. Today's explainer is all about mastering the absolute bedrock of business law. We're going way back to the Indian Contract Act of 1872, and we're going to decode this remarkably simple, yet completely foundational legal equation. The goal here is to figure out exactly how everyday, casual promises actually transform into ironclad, legally binding commitments. We're going to build this up block by block, looking purely at how the law itself defines these concepts. Honestly, by the end of this, you're going to look at business agreements in a completely different way. So to set up the core mystery we're solving today, let me throw a really common beginner question your way. Is every agreement a contract? Now, in our everyday lives, we toss these words around like they mean the exact same thing. You might say, hey, we have an agreement to buy this car, or I signed a contract to buy this car, and it sounds identical, right? Well, in the eyes of the law, not even close. These are two totally distinct concepts, and one is actually just a stepping stone to the other. Let's unpack exactly why that is. Okay, let's look at the very first variable in our equation. And we're going to keep this super simple. At its core, an agreement is just a mutual promise. But wait, it's not just any promise. It requires this specific thing the law calls consideration. Basically, that means there has to be a mutual willingness and acceptance between two parties to actually exchange something. Think of it like this. If Party A offers a mobile phone to Party B, and Party B agrees to hand over a specific amount of money for it, that whole exchange process, that's the consideration. If you don't have that mutual exchange, you literally just have a one-sided statement. It is not an agreement. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that it shows this isn't just some legal theory. It is baked right into the law. Take a look at Section 2E of the Indian Contract Act. It spells it out clearly. An agreement absolutely requires this consideration, meaning that willingness and acceptance between the two parties. A promise or set of promises forming the consideration for each other is an agreement. That's our very first stepping stone. You absolutely cannot have a contract if you haven't first nailed down this basic mutual exchange. All right, so you've got your agreement. But how do we upgrade it? What's the magic catalyst that turns that basic agreement into a full-on, heavy-duty contract? Well, that catalyst is called enforceability by law. For an agreement to actually be enforceable, the law lays out two super specific conditions based on Section 2H. Number one, the agreement has to be totally legal in nature. No prohibited items, no illegal activities. And number two, to actually be binding and hold up as proof later on, it must be in a written form. This just makes sure everyone is being careful and that there's undeniable hard evidence of what was promised. Okay, let's dive into this and look at the actual legal formula we've been building. It's literally like stacking blocks. You start at the foundation with your agreement, which, remember, is just your promise plus that crucial consideration or exchange. Then you add your catalyst, enforceability by law. That means the object is legal and the terms are officially written down. When you successfully click those two elements together, boom, the result is a valid contract. Which brings us to the ultimate concept we're tackling today, the contract itself. Simply put, a contract is an agreement between two parties that is enforceable by law. That's it. It is an agreement that has successfully passed the legal test. It's got the right intentions, a valid exchange, it's entirely legal, and it has all the proper written formalities. That way, if someone decides to just walk away from the deal, a court system could actually step in and enforce the rules. And this brilliantly illustrates how the law literally spells this whole thing out as a math equation. Section 2H of the Indian Contract Act says exactly this. Contract equals agreement plus enforceability by law. It explicitly adds the detail that whatever agreements are made between the parties, they must be legal and they must be in written form. Honestly, it doesn't get much clearer than that straightforward formula. The law is giving us the exact blueprint right there. So the crucial point is, what really separates these two terms? Well, an agreement is just the promise with an exchange. It's a handshake. But a contract is an agreement backed up by the absolute power of the law. What this means is that all contracts are agreements, because you literally have to start with an agreement to build a contract. But without that crucial legal enforceability, like if it isn't legal and written down, an agreement is just an agreement. It never levels up into a contract. So we've completely decoded the formula today. You now know exactly what it takes to turn a simple promise into a binding legal document under the Indian Contract Act of 1872. Next time you shake hands on a deal or promise to exchange something with a friend, I want you to stop and ask yourself, did I just make an agreement or did I actually create a legally enforceable contract? Because knowing the difference, it changes the whole game. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer and keep asking those great questions.